The Dodgers are rolling without injured players and maybe without a once touted prospect any longer either. We have a hint as to when Matthew Stafford could retire. And with all the change at USC basketball, what would the lineup look like? Good morning. I'm James. And this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is May 30th, 2026. Welcome back to the home office. Do you like being in the know about LA sports? Well, if you do, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop an update. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. By all means, comment. So before we go through the news, we have a quick look at the scoreboard. Dodgers 4, Philadelphia 2. All 4 Dodger runs on solo home runs. They've won 13 of their last 15 games. And the magic number slips to 102. Also, the Sparks crawl above 500. They defeat the Washington Mystics 92-87. Meanwhile, today, Philadelphia is at the Dodgers at 7. Roki Sasaki versus Andrew Painter. And the Sparks are playing again. They're at Connecticut at 3. So with all that out of the way, let's get a good start on the news, because I want to talk a lot of Dodger baseball this morning, because I'm curious what's going to happen with the prospects, particularly if MLB's micromanaging commissioner succeeds in forcing a salary cap. And by the way, LA made some moves yesterday, and all of that combined made me stop and think. Do you remember Miguel Vargas? He came up through the minors, had the look of a professional hitter, but it took a little too long for him to flash that potential in the majors. And so LA sent him off to the White Sox for a reliever. Dude has 13 bombs for Chicago now, including a walk-off last night. Now, none of this is to go back and ask who won the trade. The Dodgers won the world title after the Vargas trade with that reliever, Michael Kopech. It is instead to ask, how much runway do these younger Dodger players get to establish themselves? Because in a bit of a surprise, Ha-Seong Kim was sent to the minors and Santiago Espinal was re-signed Friday. Remember, Espinal was designated for assignment Monday. They reeled him back in super quick. The Dodgers had placed 2 players on the injured list, Kike and Teoscar Hernandez. No relation. And as a result, there was a ton of moves with the roster. Ryan Ward also returns to the show. He'll platoon in the outfield with Alex Call. Ward versus righties, Call versus lefties. But the big change to me is Kim. And by the way, Ward, we don't know how long he'll be up here either. But Kim, we thought he might be done with the minors because he started the season in the Midwest manure pit. That was because he played in the World Baseball Classic, seemed to lose some part of the mechanics in his swing. And then he comes up to the show, he gets a decent start. But since May 8th, Kim has batted just 174, and he has struck out twice as often than he would get a base hit. 17 strikeouts, 8 hits. Simply put, he's chasing pitches, and they sent him to the minors because apparently he has rapport with the AAA coaching staff. At this point, though, there is a question whether Kim ever comes back, because Tommy Edman is on rehab assignment in Oklahoma City too. Now, Edman has about 2 weeks to go before the Dodgers have to make a decision. If you recall, Edman didn't even make it to spring training. They are just slowly ramping him back up. But it all comes back to the original question, because it isn't easy to begin your career in Dodger blue. Now, I confess, I could easily be overthinking this. Absolutely. I mean, it's not like James Outman took Minnesota by storm. Sometimes a prospect has some great reviews and doesn't pan out anywhere. But I do think of particular Dodger prospects who didn't start off well and then left and flourished. There is a bit of a pressure cooker, a crucible when you play in Los Angeles. It's been that way for a long time. I used to cover minor league baseball, a lot of it. I remember back in the day, the Dodgers had a prospect at single A they really believed in. Can't miss catching prospect. And he only got 143 at-bats in LA. The Dodgers got impatient and they sent Paul Konerko away, who became a 6-time All-Star, a world champ, and a franchise icon with Chicago. So I'm curious, because the Dodgers do wind up sending players away kind of quickly. By the way, as for the injured players, Teoscar Hernandez did get his MRI. He's going to miss a few weeks with a hamstring strain. GM Brandon Gomes is thinking a slower build for the return. See, Gomes thought that the Dodgers got burned when they brought Hernandez back from a groin injury a little bit too quickly. So they're perfectly content. Said they're going, okay, let's see if this platoon can pay dividends. And by the way, Blake Snell has been transferred to the 60-day injured list, and that makes me feel kind of bitter. But we'll see him in a couple of months, I guess. And with all of that complaining, by the way, about whether or not Dodger prospects get a fair shot, I suppose now would be a good time to update you on some of the elite prospects, because irony. There has been some shuffling in terms of the rankings, but the takeaway is the Dodgers have 5 prospects among the top 25 ranked by The Athletic. And you would be correct in saying no other franchise comes close. 4 of these top 25, or I should say top 5 prospects are outfielders, including Eduardo Quintero as the Dodgers' best prospect, 11th overall, but he's still in single A. His ish is he's still swinging at too many pitches out of the strike zone. Josue De Paula, right behind him, ranked 13th. He's at double A, along with teammate Mike Sirota. Now, you might be saying, well, wait a second. We talked about Ward coming back to the majors. Why didn't James Tibbs, who is also in the top 25 of the Athletic prospects, and by the way, absolutely ripping the Pacific Coast League to shreds? You might be wondering why he didn't get summoned. Because he's allegedly dealing with a forearm-ish. But again, you wonder, how much of a shot are these guys going to get? When Edman comes to the major leagues in about 2.5 weeks, you're basically asking Ward to produce in 2.5 weeks. And that wouldn't even necessarily be about trying to make sure Edman stays in the minors. He's not going to stay in the minors. So if you're a Dodger fan, let me know what you think. Do these prospects actually get a fair shot at proving themselves? Because unless you're talking about Will Smith and Andy Pages, how? They say there are no stupid questions. I don't know who said that quote first, but I'm willing to bet it was a sports writer, because they asked some of the dumbest questions I've ever heard, and I was one. I was a scribe for 25 years, and toward the end of my career, I got so tired of asking the obvious stupid question that I would actually warn the coach or the player, hey, I got to ask you a stupid question at the end of this interview. I just have to ask it to cover my bases. The scribes asked Matthew Stafford if he intends to fulfill the 2 remaining years on his current Rams contract. After all, he is 38 and probably bound for a motorized wheelchair 5 minutes after he retires. And Stafford gave the answer you would expect from a 38-year-old quarterback with chronic spinal issues. Quote, I'm not 25 years old and I get that. Obviously, if I'm feeling healthy, and like I said, it's a family decision, I can't sit there and tell you what it's going to look like 365 days from now. If you can, let me know, unquote. And I am reading that quote and thinking Stafford had to resist adding the word dumbass to the end of every sentence. I'm not 25 years old. I get it, dumbass. I can't sit there and tell you what it's going to look like 365 days from now, dumbass. If you can, let me know, dumbass. I get it. I totally get it. Dumb question. But that still had that Grandpa Simpson yelling at the clouds vibe written all over it, my dude. You're not the same kid chucking deep balls to Megatron in Detroit and wearing your cap backwards like you're going to a Limp Bizkit concert. Stupid questions are part of the reason you make $50 million a year. And by the way, I'd be lying if I said I had inside dope, because it's been a long time since I covered an NFL football game. But I would wager this is Stafford's last year. A couple of days ago, we outlined on this program the Rams' salary cap situation for next offseason and how Puka Nacua could just gobble up much of that space. And by the way, if it's not Nacua, there's 2 young pass rushers due for a pay hike. But then what? The Rams have 4 potential offensive lineman free agents, starters no less. See, the Rams' defense of a Super Bowl title fell apart in 2022 because the offensive line fell apart. Andrew Whitworth retired, for example. Stafford didn't even finish that year. He had a spinal bruise in New Orleans in week 10. Dude couldn't even feel his legs. This is why the Rams were never in danger of losing Stafford 2 years ago when he wanted to redo his contract and they wanted us to get all in our feels over him trying to play for Vegas or the New York Jets. The Rams rebuilt their offensive line. Dude lost feelings in his legs, and you're trying to tell me he wanted to finish his career behind the Jets O-line? Get real. Now, the Rams did a lot of good this offseason, but only adding Keegan Trost to the O-line in the 3rd round? Do you really expect him, even though the Rams play or will play with 3 tight ends a lot, do you really expect Stafford to put his health on the line if LA can't keep that line intact next year? Food for thought. I give you this forecast of USC basketball with very little trust. You are welcome to be skeptical. It's not that I think this analysis is wrong. It's that there was so much change with the Trojans that we have very little idea how Eric Musselman will cobble together a lineup. So, unless you have players with established roles, you, as the analyst, trap yourself into thinking a lineup is going to be 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. There are teams that run with 3 guards, for example. Musselman might go there. But if he doesn't, Sports Illustrated's analysis pencils in Rodney Rice and Elijah Arenas at guard. Then Jacob Kofi at center. All 3 of that makes sense. They're returning. Kofi got a look at the NBA draft combine before returning to SoCal, right? Totally makes sense. But you would be looking at an all-freshman combo at forward. Christian Collins and Adonis Ratliff, both of them McDonald's All-Americans. So, true or false? No idea. For instance, it may still be an all-freshman forward combo, but Ratliff's brother Darius might crack the code and knock either his brother or Collins out. So we don't know for sure. It's an initial stab. If you're a USC fan and you're tired of missing the NCAA tournament, let me know what you think of the potential of that lineup. And by the way, let me know what you think in the comments thread overall. Talk to me about the current state of the Dodger prospect pool, or if you imagine seeing Hyseong Kim ever again. And is this Matthew Stafford's last year? If you enjoyed the update, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.